Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. So now we're ready to move on to our next project in the book, which is going to be Life Seen Through the Window. So let's get started and have some fun. And if you're new to this project, this is the Julie Nutting Paper Doll Altered Book Series. So the series starts with video number 1. So if you've just found this, then you want to go ahead and start with video number 1, and it shows you how to get started, how to make the book, how to choose a book, and then the first project, and then it'll move on as you go from there. And you can do it at your own pace. So go find video number 1 if you're new to this series. So when I open my book, I have the first thing is the girls on the edge. And the next thing I want to do is a peekaboo window. So what I want to do when I close my book and I look at it from the top, you can see that as everything dried and settled, it kind of gators out a little bit. I could flatten that out by putting something heavy on my book, which I will do. But so that's telling me I really need to take out some pages right here. And this is where I was saying it's personal preference on how you remove your pages and when you remove your pages. But this is where I want to go for my page removal, because I know that that way, when I do my next layout, it's going to give a little bit of space here. It's not going to just keep adding more thick things. So I'm going to remove probably about maybe 6 pages. And this is a string-bound book, but I've had a really hard time trying to find where the signatures actually end, and that's where you can turn the pages and see the string that goes across. I've looked and looked, and I haven't been able to find it. It seems like this book was bound from the front of the book all the way through the book to the back of the book, which is really odd. I've never seen that before in a book. So I'm kind of just having to go with that, and that's okay. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to just tear them out and make this really weak here. So I'm going to just use an X-Acto knife and a mat behind it and cut out my 6 pages, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. I know that some people would say, well, that's not the correct way to do it. That paper is still going to be right back there at the spine, making your book fat, but it really won't. Having these pages removed will be helpful in making my book not too thick. So that's the first thing, is remove the 6 pages. The next thing I'm going to do is this side of the back of this page is going to be decorated. And then there's going to be another page in the middle and then another page decorated. So for these pages in the middle, I'm going to put together 2 sets. I think I'm going to do 3 pages in the sets. Let's see how thick that would be. Maybe even 3 and 2. I don't know. 2 and 2, 3 and 2. Doesn't matter. You're going to get the feel for what feels right. When this is all said and done, it's going to end up being all the pages together. And I do want it pretty sturdy. So I think I probably will do 3 and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do them, but do them separately, so there's separate sets that are put together just like I did my sets up front. So I'm going to remove pages, I'm going to put together my sets and let them dry, and then I'll show you my next step. And I think it's important to know that there really is no right or wrong way to make an altered book. So it's really trial and error. It's what feels right when you're making your book. You want to create your book so that it's sturdy and doesn't fall apart. You want to do it in a way that feels right to you. And so if you've seen other ways of doing it, it doesn't mean one way is right and one way is wrong. Everybody's just doing their own thing and showing their process, and you just have to find out what works best for you. I've mentioned this in a previous video about this with this book project, that when you're putting your sets together, you're using your Mod Podge. I have them separated with the wax paper. I've used my credit card to squeegee them out and make them super flat. I stand the thick part of the book up on its end and then push down here along this gutter so that the pages are really, really flat and they don't have that arch in them. See how straight across flat they are? But then what I also do is I rest this up against something, leaving the book standing up like this while the pages dry. The pages will come out super, super flat without any bulges right here in the gutter. So I just thought I'd give you that tip. So for this project, I'm using 2 different Julie Netting stamps, and I'm using Melissa. I just received Melissa in Happy Mail from Mimi. So she was watching me do these videos and start this project, and she wanted to send me something that would help out with making the book. So she chose this off my Amazon wish list. So here's Melissa, and oh my gosh, she's so darling. And of course, it's got a cute bee, so I'm going to even put that in my bee altered book that I did a couple videos back. I did a flip through of an altered book with a bee theme, and I'm going to use that in there. But here's Melissa. And then I'm also going to use JAYLA. JAYLA I received for Christmas from my brother. So when he found out that I was doing this project, he gave me some stamps as well. So these are the 2 I'm using, is Melissa and JAYLA. And I will show you what I do to assemble and decorate them. So just to show you real quick how I'm layering, this is the JAYLA stamp, and I'm using a kind of a darker skin tone for her to do her base. I stamped that, and I stamped the base in archival ink and coffee, and then I stamped her hair on this dark brown cardstock using ground espresso. Instead of using black, I like to do it in lighter colors, or the colors that go. I don't know why, but for the hair and the body. For the clothing, I used black soot archival ink. And to layer her outfit, I'm doing her little long jacket in this pretty floral print. I did this itty bitty tiny polka dot print for her collar. This green print for her pants, and this green for her shoes. So that's how that's going to be layered. And these cute papers came in some Happy Mail this week from Mimi. She's been watching my videos, and she went through her stash to look for things with little itty bitty tiny prints for me to be able to have some more papers to play with for putting together these dolls. So thank you so much, Mimi. Love these papers. I'm using them. So let's put JAYLA together, and I'll decorate her and make her all fancy. I'm going to use probably Caran d'Ache Neocolor II and colored pencils to do some shading on the papers, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get her assembled. And I decided to stamp that jacket again. That little tiny, tiny polka dot print is so stinking cute that what I want to do, here's her floral jacket, and this is what's going to go on top for her collar. So what I'm going to do is just take a little pencil, and I'm going to make like a little cuff. Just kind of sketch this out on this stamped version to make a little cuff, and little cuff for her jacket sleeves, so that it'll be her collar, her cuffs, and at the base of her little jacket are all going to have that pink polka dot. So I'm going to cut those little pieces out and layer it. So here's how JAYLA's coming out. I've got her little outfit layered. I like the cute polka dot bordered little cuffs and collar. I did some colored pencil to make some shading on the pants and the jacket. I shaded the shoes. I put little bows on her shoes with embroidery floss. I just tied it in a bow and made them real small and added some bows. I used a gold paint pen, a Posca paint pen, to make her gold earrings. I used some Neocolor II to do some shading on her hair. And she's just coming out really cute. So what I want to do is add some butterflies to her. And I'm using this rubber stamp. This is a All Night Media rubber stamp from 1993 called Flutter of Butterflies. So if you are looking for that stamp, that's what it is. It's stamp number 344E, All Night Media. And it's got these cute little butterflies. So what I did was to stamp those onto some white cardstock. I'm going to color them and cut them out, fold them in half, and I'm going to put butterflies all over her. So So here's what she looks like with her little butterflies. I just colored them and cut them out, and I bent them, and so they're really dimensional on her head, and I put one on her jacket, so it's really cute with her little butterflies. Okay, so I just wanted to show you real quick how I'm going to do the layering for the Melissa stamp. And this just is just to show you my process and give you some ideas. Any way you want to do it is totally up to you. They're your dolls. So I always stamp the base one onto whatever color I'm going to use for the skin tone. And that way I can, when I paper piece, I can layer it. So there's my base on cream colored cardstock. And I stamped it with Ranger Archival ink in coffee. And then for her hair is going to be almost black, but I didn't want to stamp on black cardstock because it's really hard to see. I can color this darker. And so I used jet black archival ink, and I stamped on a dark brown cardstock. For her outfit, I'm going to do her dress in this cute paper. This was paper sent to me in Happy Mail from Mimi. Thank you, Mimi. Look how cute. Those little itty bitty flower pattern is going to be darling for her dress. These are going to be the accent pieces, the shoes, the headband, the belt, and the trim on her dress. So that's going to be nice and bright and cheery to layer it. And now I'm going to go do my magic, and I'll show what she looks like. So here's how my Melissa doll came out. Let me show you up close. I did little gems on her headband. Those gems are like for diamond painting, so they're really tiny. And then I did a different gem on her neck and drew to make a little necklace with a gem. I added the trim up here and the bow and the shoes all to match. I did some colored pencil on her dress to just do a little bit of shading. When I put her belt on, I bent the cardstock a little bit to make it rounded, make it look puffy. And so that's Melissa. And I made her hair darker. I used some Neocolor II to make her hair darker. So that's Melissa and my JAYLA, and so they're ready now to do their background pages. So let's get started on the backgrounds. Okay, so my book is dry and ready to go. I'm going to just remove my pieces of wax paper, put them aside for using again next time. And these are my sets. So here's going to be my base page over here. I've got two sets here that's going to create the middle part, and then a set over here is going to be this side for decorating. So what I'm going to do is create a window page. So you can have a round window, and a rectangle, a square, doesn't really matter. You can use a compass to make your circle, or if you don't have a compass, you can use something round. And what you want to do is to draw your pencil line around, because you're going to decorate your base pages, and you want the base pages to be decorated all the way to the edge of where the window is going to be. So I recommend decorating the pages and then cutting your window out, whatever shape it's going to be. So if you use a circle, you'd put this down once your page is decorated, and you go to cut it out. You're going to cut that out and then put it over the second set. Use that as a template to draw the circle onto the second set, and cut that one out so that your two circles would be exactly lined up together on the page. That's the easiest way to do it. For this one, I'm going to use these frames. I had these frames from back in my scrapbooking days, and they're just little cardstock frames, but I really like them. So I think I'm going to use frames, but I like to make my pencil mark. This is just so that I know where the window is going to be. So when I'm doing a collage or anything fun on the page, I don't want to put some really cool picture collage onto the page that's going to get cut out and removed, if that makes sense. So I'm going to just pencil in here that this is where I want my window to be. And then I can work on my collage, and I'll just I'll go over those lines, but avoid that area of putting anything that I want to keep or have seen on my page. So now I'm going to get started and start doing some background. So for my background, I'm going to just do some crazy collaging and some texture, some stenciling, and just really make a really fun background. For your book, you can do whatever you'd like. I'm just showing you my process. So I'm going to use things like pattern paper. I love this cool pattern. Maybe even the inside of some security envelopes because I love those patterns. Some cheesecloth. Some little bits and pieces of images from books and magazines, and I'm kind of going with a flowery theme on this page. So for what the way I like to start it is to just start tearing and applying and layering things one on top of each other, and you can go over this edge where you've put this place where your window's going to go, but just be sure that you know, you go up to it and over it a little bit so that when we cut it out, the designs that you make on the page are going to show right up to the window. So things like this, you know, things like this to put down are great. I like to carry them across the pages, and I don't have any rhyme or reason or thought to it. I just like to start adding things. And of course, I'm going to use paints and Neocolor II, and all kinds of things like that too, but this is where I start with it. So this is my starting process, and everybody's process is a little different with this, but this is how I like to play and make a page. So I'm going to just cover it up here so I've got protection for my other pages, and I'm going to just start putting down some Mod Podge. This is just matte Mod Podge, and I'm going to start adding some things and layering. And these things like this, I love that. And I could trim it out and have it be perfect, but I don't think I want that. But I do kind of like straight edges sometimes on pages too. So maybe I'll leave a little bit of straight edge because it gives a fun place to make some shadows with charcoal and whatnot. So that will work. Going right up into my edge there. So that's what I'm going to do, is just start layering and adding these fun bits of paper as my first layer. And it's got some beautiful texture on there from the cheesecloth. I love that look, so I've got that on there. And then little torn bits and pieces, so that's going to be the first layer. And now I need to completely let it dry before I move on to the next layer. So if you have trouble choosing colors for your backgrounds, this is a card from the Color Cubes from Sarah Renee Clark. I'll have a video that I'll link in the description box below that explains about the Color Cube, shows them and shows how to use them. But I pulled this card because when I put my girl that's going on this page next to it, it's got some of the same colors in it. The green is a complementary color to that, so the green will go really nicely as something that'll make her pop off the page. So then I chose some paints that are matching and go with this card, and that's how I'm going to create my background colors. And this is a fun time to just bring in some color. I use an old book block as my template for my paints because I can tear it off and throw it away. So what I like to do, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of color blocking on my page, and that way it'll bring the colors all over and throughout. So I like to put rule of threes, 1, 2, 3, and that way it carries your eye across the page. That's, again, my process, and you don't have to do it this way. I'm just showing you how I do it. I put on a little paint. My brush is very wet, and so that kind of makes the paint transparent. It's just acrylic paint. But when I lightly brush with a damp paintbrush, it's just transparent and it blends out that paint. If you want it to be opaque, don't use a wet brush, use a dry brush. But this is just going to start adding in some color. I'm going over the cheesecloth. And I like too how it's going to let the book text on the page show. And I kind of just blend it out into things that I have glued down on the page. And it'll start to add a little color there. Add a little color up here, and see how it's just a little hint of color like that. And so I'm going to do that with all the colors. And I'm going to do it with orange. And again, a rule of 3. So I'm going to do some orange here, here, and here. And I'm not going to rinse my brush on this because those colors together, I know from experience that that won't make mud. If you're worried about your colors blending and making a muddy brown color, then let the colors dry in between and rinse your brush. So again, I'm just doing the same thing. Spreading out the color. I'm going over and into those pages. And this is just kind of like the next layer. Just doing my thing. So, and it's your book. So do it your way or do it another way if you've seen someone else's techniques that you like. I just love to do it this way, and I love how the end result is. So, and I love going over the cheesecloth. It looks so pretty. And I want that paper underneath to show. Okay, let's put a little orange up here even. Why not? And this time I did rinse my brush and dry it off a little bit because I know that this color is a little bit dark and I don't want mud. So you just kind of have to get the feel for your art supplies and your art tools. I mean, that's part of the process too, is learning about how the art supplies interact with each other and how if your paint brush should be wet or dry. And the more you play around with it, the more you get the feel for it, and then you find what works best for you, what you like best, what you like, techniques you like doing the most. I like that dark purple, that looks pretty. And I'm not using specific brands of paint. They're all mixed. It's just acrylic paint, so nothing too crazy or wild. Okay, I like those little pops, but we've got it over here. Rule of 3, rule of 3. Go over that cheesecloth. Ooh, that's pretty. And some of this will show through and some of it won't. See, you can use your finger to dab your paints instead of brushing. That makes a really beautiful texture too. Look at that. You can dab your paints. Instead of having brush strokes, you can just dab them with your finger, do a little finger painting. That's really pretty too. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to just keep playing and adding colors until I have my colors on the page, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. So on this card, there's this color right here, these two colors that are like a really deep color, and I'm using an Arteza color called Sangria Red, which is almost exactly the same as the one at the top. And I know that's going to be a really dark color, so what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to just dip my brush in, and I'm just going to make some cool little texture patterns instead of just spreading out the color completely. And of course some of that's going to be in where the frame is, so that's going to disappear. But you know, just making some texture spots with it, so it's not a really strong influence of that color. I like it, but I don't want it to overshadow my page. So I'm just going to do a little bit of dotting it in for some texture and interest. Like that. So it's just making some pattern. Hopefully this will all make sense to you as it comes together and you see what the end result looks like. And I don't have plans, you know, I don't plan it out. I just start playing, because to me, you're watching that page come to life, and I think that's what's really, really fun. Okay, now for stenciling, if you want to use texture paste through a stencil that'll be raised, you can do that. But if you want to have any stenciling on your page that's just the flat image on the paper, you want to do that before you do the texture paste version. Because right now your book is flat, or your page is flat. So I'm gonna, I just grabbed a couple of different Tim Holtz stencils, and with some little tiny cute patterns, and I'm going to start doing just a little bit of stenciling. And I don't want to overdo this page. I am going to knock it back with some gesso, but I don't want to overdo it because you want your paper doll girl to shine. So you have to be careful of making it too terribly wild, but a little bit of texture and fun just adds interest. So I'm going to just do a little bit of stenciling, and I chose an ivy green that is going to pick up the green of the leaves, and it's going to pick up the green in her pants to do a little bit of the stenciling. So I just dampen a sponge and dab it on my paint. You don't want too much paint when you stencil. And I'm going to just do a little bit of stenciling. See, and it looks like my little sponge is a little too wet. If it's too wet, we won't get a crisp, clean stencil image. And you can use some of the colors of paint you already used for your stenciling. You can use a little soft stencil brush to pick up your paint for stenciling. Whatever you like to do best, that's what you should do. And some of this is, you're going to see it, and some of it you're not, because you're going to knock some of it back and some of it will disappear. But that's the fun part, you know, and when you see what's left, that's what's really cool. So I'm kind of just adding that. You can see that little texture. I love it. Adding some of that texture in here. And I'm kind of going where the orange already was, so that it's just bringing it out and bringing it into the page. I like that because I love texture. Cool. Okay, so you're getting the idea that you just start to layer. And now my next layer is going to be maybe some stencil paste through a stencil. So let's do that. I'm going to use some modeling paste and a gift card to apply it through the stencil. You can use a palette knife. I do have a palette knife, but it's not at hand right now, so I'm just grabbing this. And I have an idea for something I'm going to do on my page that'll come later. So I know I don't want to put any textury stuff too much right here. A little bit here. So I'm going to do more in some other areas that are more outlying. I mean, I don't plan out my pages, but I do have an idea for a design. So you kind of have to plan around like that if you have an idea for something you're going to do decoration-wise. And I do. So I'm just going to apply some like that. Really nifty. I like it. Maybe do a little bit over here would be really cool looking. And I actually think using a gift card works even a little bit better than a palette knife because it's nice and wide. Yeah, that looks really cool. I like it. I'm going to do just a tiny bit down here on the corner. That won't hurt what I'm going to do for the page. Let's put a little bit over here. Awesome. I like that. That looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry before moving on. And my biggest advice is for people who are new to mixed media and trying some of these techniques and trying some of these new art supplies and products. Maybe you haven't done these things before. A lot of people get afraid and hung up on, oh my gosh, I'm going to make a mess. It looks really messy and it's not working out. Absolutely don't sweat it, because everything can be covered. So if you made a total mess of this page, even if the colors turned to mud and it went wrong, it went south, you can let it dry and you can put white or black gesso over the top and keep collaging and keep going. So don't panic. And there's always an ugly phase. So right now, this looks pretty scary. It's not pretty and fancy. It's just kind of like, what the heck is she doing? What is she doing? But trust me, as you play and you keep making layers and you keep going forward with it and doing more things over it, it comes together in the end and it'll be something really spectacular and beautiful, and you'll be so proud of what you've created. So don't get hung up and don't get afraid to try and use color and use different techniques and play and have fun with it, because nothing can be ruined. You can always paint over it. So it's drying and it's coming along. This has dried completely, so now I can move on to my next step. So what I'm going to do, I'm taking a Caran d'Ache Neocolor II. This is a salmon pink. I wanted to bring out a little bit more of the pink in the page, and I'm just going to pick up some of the Waterbrush, and I'm going to come in here and brush over the places that I did the texture paste. Neocolor II's, they're water soluble. They're like watercolor, only they're a little more opaque, and you can color right on the page with them, but you can also use a water brush. And they're one of my favorite art supplies, and they work so great for tinting any kind of modeling paste. So I'm going to just brush over this to bring back some of that pink. Once it dries, because I do like the white, I just didn't want them stark white. So once it dries, I'm going to go over them lightly with a little bit of sandpaper to bring back a little bit of the white to it. But see how that's just toning it down, making it pink, but not too pink and not too white. It's just perfect. So I really like that a lot. You can also take these and color right on the page, put down some color, and then use a water brush to dab it out. Blend it in. To add a little pop of pink right there. I just really love these so much. So I'm going to do that and play around with that, bringing in some pink over these texture paste areas. Now I'm going to take a pencil. I have an idea to add in a flower down here, and I'm just going to really lightly pencil where I want it to go and what it's going to look like. It doesn't have to be a perfectly drawn on image. It's just going to be acrylic paint. I'm going to do one there, and I think I'm going to do one right here. This is just to give me an idea of where I want it, and some just simple guidelines to follow. Okay, now I'm just going to take a paintbrush and some acrylic paint and start to paint those flowers. This paint is a little bit too transparent, but that's okay. It'll add some interest to it. I'll be able to see what's underneath it, so it's kind of good. It's hard to find a really solid, opaque, bright yellow. But I could go over it a couple coats too, and I could have put gesso underneath it, but I don't know. Again, I think I kind of like the fact that you can see my textures and design underneath. So it's kind of pretty. I'm going right over the textures, so It's kind of pretty. That's what mixed media is you've got layers of paints and textures and images overlapping each other. It's really fun. So that cheesecloth is making those petals of the flowers look really cool. I like it. I like it. I think I'll put another one over here. Yeah, I actually really like that the paint is showing what's underneath. That's making those petals, those flower petals, look even more interesting. Pretty snazzy. Okay, oh, I love that. Love it. I think I'm going to put one over here too, just to have the rule of three. I'll put an upside down one over here. Okay, now I'm going to use some brown paint and a little brush that's kind of like a flat-tipped brush, and I'm dry brushing it, so my brush tip is dry, it's not wet. And I'm going to just come in here and dab in the flower center. I want it to be not perfect, but more spounced in like that. Ooh, I love it, love it, love it. Cute, cute, cute. Cute, cute, cute. You know, this is your artwork time. It's your time to play and have fun and create something different and interesting and just really enjoy. I always say art soothes the heart, and it truly does. You can be having the worst day, and if you go and do art for a little bit, you'll just feel so much better because it just makes you happy. Takes your mind off of everything else. I use it for pain management instead of heavy-duty medications. When I have a lot of pain, I just do physical pain. I do art, and you can't be in pain when I'm making art. Look how pretty. Oh, it's so pretty. It's coming together. Love it. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to use a Uniposca paint pen, and this color is khaki green, to just come in here and make a stem. And I don't want it straight and perfect. Flowers in nature are not perfect. And this is another paint pen. This is also a khaki color. Actually, it's called Curry. This is a deco brush by Karin. And I'm going to just make some petals. But I don't want to be too terribly deliberate. I'm just throwing a little bit of petals on there. Let's hold that up so you can see. Just making that one come down the center. I'm not going to put any petals on these or leaves on those. And I think I want to define those flowers a little bit, so I'm going to use a fine point black Posca pen, paint pen, to just come in here and sketch in roughly like that. So do some sketchy lines to make those flowers pop. That looks good. I like it. It made the flowers stand out just a little bit more. And I don't want them to be drawn perfect. I want them sketchy. Sketchy looking. But see how that just makes them stand out a little bit more on their own. Not too deliberate, but like that. I like that a lot. See how that made them really pop a little bit and stand out? And that's the fun thing. So now that brought them forward, and it brings the ones that I collaged on first, it puts them to the background and it puts those in the foreground. So that's what playing around does. It just brings things forward and back, and it just looks really fun as you create. So next I think I'm going to do some circles. It's fun to go around your house and find some things of different sizes that will make circles. So toilet paper rolls, maybe tubes from wrapping paper. This is a little, that was from some pens I had, a little plastic tube, all different sizes of circles to create circles on your page. So you put some paint down on your palette, and then you're just going to want to dab your item into the paint, and then come here and make circles on your page. You almost like stamp them on your page, and you want them to be all different sizes, and you can overlap to the same. So see, I'm making circles. It's just another element of interest that I'm adding to the page. So I'm going to just make some, and I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to put too many, but I do want them to add some fun and interest to this. So now let's see, I'll switch to a different size. You just have to make sure you pick up paint and you get it all around all the edges. And I have this beautiful little bug down here. So I think I'm going to just go around him with a circle. Make him stand out as a focal. And where else? How about over here? Like that. How about a bigger one? Let's see. I think I'm going to go with this great big one. Pick up paint. And do a big circle around the edge. And it doesn't matter if it comes out perfect or not, because it's just an element. You can twist it slightly. Yeah, see, that didn't come out at all because there's a lot of texture on the page. Let me try it again. Pick up some more paint. Let's try it again. See if we can get more of a circle on there. And if not, that's okay. Perfect. I like that. This is really coming together, and it's looking so pretty in person. Now I'm taking a Uniposca chisel-shaped paint pen, and I'm going to make a little bit of a black border. I may not go around the whole thing. I'm going to just play that by ear. I love bordering pages. I think that it ties everything together, and it just makes it look really pretty. It's just my preference. I love borders. So I'm going to go around these edges and do kind of some black border edges. Be very careful not to get that doll on the previous page. I think I'll just go up to the flower but not over it. And see how that just really ties everything in together. I love the black border. So I'm going to do a little border down here. I'm going to go over here. And miss those flowers, leave the flowers out. Yeah, perfect. See, I love this. That's what I love. I love the border. And see how that just really tied it all in. Okay. Now I'm going to take some iridescent gold paint. This is golden fluid, but you could use any iridescence. and a dry brush. So I'm going to put a little on my palette, and I'm going to take a dry brush and pick up some paint, and I'm going to carefully brush over the spots that have texture, like the cheesecloth. Oh, it's so pretty. So pretty. I'm going to do it a little bit on the cheesecloth on the flower. Over the spots that I use texture paste, instead of sanding those down, I think I'm going to brush over them lightly like this with gold paint to just pop them out a little bit with gold paint. And the dry brushing just picks up all those shapes and textures. It looks really pretty. Just adds a little pop of interest and color, and it makes the textures stand up. Oh, love it. Love it. I really love that. Okay, let's hold it up and show you. So see how it picks up the texture in the texture paste and in the cheesecloth and makes it stand out. Really pretty. It's so much prettier in person. To me, all these things always look better in person. While I've got the gold paint out and my dry brush, I'm going to just go around the edges of that frame that's going on this side to make the edges all gold. So I run along the inside edge and the outside edge with gold paint, and it just gives the impression of it being like a gilded frame. Now I'm going to put this aside for a minute while it's drying, and the next thing I'm going to do is take some tissue paper, just one thin piece of tissue paper that you would use like for wrapping gifts, and I'm going to use 2 rubber stamps and some Ranger archival ink, and I'm going to stamp right onto the tissue paper. So this is an oldie but goodie too. This is from 1999 PSX Butterfly. An oldie but goodie. And I'm going to ink it really well and stamp it on the tissue paper. And I think I'm going to use this one. And the same thing, I'm going to ink it really well. Ranger archival ink will not bleed, so that's why I really like it. I like it a lot. And I'm going to stamp this one. Next, I'm going to take my water brush and I'm going to just kind of go around the edges of them like this with my water brush, wetting the tissue, and then that's going to allow me to tear them out like this. You can go as close to the image as you want. I could have gone closer, but I don't really think it matters. But then you can easily tear out that piece. Same thing here. Go around the edge. Get it wet. And tear it away. Now I'm going to just use some Mod Podge and apply them to the page. And I'm doing this one over the edge. And just be sure you get enough Mod Podge on there to really glue it down. And the tissue paper kind of disappears. And you don't even hardly see it. Oops. That was too much. I want some, but not that much. I love that technique. It's so pretty. It's beautiful. And then when the tissue paper dries, it has its own texture to it, so it's just so lovely. And the last two elements I want to add are these butterflies. They're just paper. I cut them out of Daphne's Diary and magazine, and I'm going to just Mod Podge those down onto the page as well. So here's what those look like. And I trimmed off the edges off the page. And now the last thing I'm going to do before moving on to the next layout is I do like splatters, and I'm going to take some black paint watered down in a splatter brush, and I'm going to put some light splatters all over this page. So I love the look of splatters, and I think the black splatters just really make the page look cool. So it's got little black splatters everywhere. Now I'm going to really let this dry before I move on. And we can't add these elements until the end, but the girl's going to go here. She's going to be standing on that flower, and she's got her butterflies in her hair, and then this is going to be where the frame is going to go. The picture frame is going to be over here. So I just have to put those aside to work on the next layout. So you're going to skip this section here, and you're going to work on this and create a layout here. And I think for the sake of length of this video, since you've already seen me do a background like this, I think I'm going to do this page off camera. And it may be a little bit different, but what I think I'm going to do is take the girl and choose some colors that are in her outfit. And I think I'm going to make some swirly stripes across the page that I might even do some Zentangle patterns on, and maybe even put some words in the swirls. So I think that's what I'm going to do for that background. And I'm not going to show it. I'll just show you when it's completed. And so you can, and I'll tell you and explain to you what I did. But that's the next step, is to now decorate the back set of pages, leave the center part blank, and be sure you let this dry first solid before you start working, so you don't have anything stick together. And I always use cold wax. I always use Gamblin cold wax. I put some on my finger, rub it all over the page, and buff it out, and that way nothing will stick together. But it has to be completely dry first before you can wax your page. So I'm going to let this dry, then I'm going to wax it, and then I'm going to go ahead and create this layout in the back. And then I'll show you how to create the window. So for this page, I just used a sponge and acrylic paint and made my colors. And I used colors that were in her outfit. So see how that really goes with that. That's how I chose my colors for that page. I'm going to take this piece of paper and cut it into strips to use it for the border. It's got sparkles. It's one of those sparkle cardstock. So I'm going to border the page with this. And then I'm going to do some, probably some Zentangle doodling and a saying on this page. So that's what I'm going to do for decorating that page. Here's how my page turned out. I took those borders and I cut them into little pieces of different lengths, and then just created a really fun and funky border. I took a Tombow mono drawing pen, and I did some Zentangle in the pink sections. I used paint pens to just add some colors, like abstract type painting in the other sections. The girl is going to go over here like that. I used a saying out of a book. This is Let Nothing Dim the Light That Shines From Within by Maya Angelou. I took some Arteza metallic paint and I went around the frame like I did on the other page, and I had some still left on my palette, so I added water to it and thinned it out, and then I just brushed it along in here, and it made just like a transparent shimmer of gold in those orange sections. See if you can see that. That's really fun. And so she's going to go right here, and what I have decided to do is, instead of putting my frames the long ways, I'm going to put my frames this direction like this. So what you want to do next is to go back to your original page, make sure everything on here is dry. I did use my cold wax on here so nothing sticks together. Page doesn't stick because it's waxed. So the frame is going to go here, and I want it kind of as high as I can get it, but I want it to have a nice little border. So I want to be sure that I put it in place and then draw my line, and I'm only going to cut the top page. So once I have it straight and where I want it, I'm going to draw my lines. And now I'm going to just that page, cut out that rectangle. So now that that space is cut out, you want to put your frame back over, or circle. If you're doing a circle, whatever way you're doing it, you want to be sure that it covers all those edges. If any of the page hangs out, trim it back so that it doesn't show. And this one is perfect. So now what you want to do is to just hold it down, and you're going to use that space as your template for the other page. So draw your rectangle on this side like this. Now they're going to match up perfectly, and you're going to pick this up carefully and cut that space out. So here are the two pieces cut out, and they line up nicely together. So the next step you're going to do, and this is a really important one, you want to take a brush pen or a paint pen or paint on a sponge or something, and you're going to want to go in and clean up or color those edges. If you wait and you don't do that till after your window is in, then you can't do it without getting a mess all over the window. So this is really important. Otherwise, you're going to see that white edge and it really looks terrible. So to finish it off, go around all those edges and darken them with either a color from the page or black or whatever you want to use. And that step is so important. I've done windows before where I didn't do that, and I get the window all glued into place, and then you see this really, really ugly white edge, and you really can't fix it. So learn from my mistakes. Do this first. Okay, and so once you get those edges done, the next thing you're going to do is find a piece of plastic. So now you're going to want to use upcycled plastic from packaging, and you're going to cut out a piece of plastic, and you want to cut it probably about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch bigger than what your shape is that you used. If you used a circle, a square, rectangle, whatever, you want to cut your piece of plastic out and make it 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches bigger than the window space. So here's my piece of plastic, and it's cut bigger than the window. So now what I like to do is to go around the edge and put glue down, and I'm just using craft glue. This is Tonic Studios craft tacky glue. You could use art glitter glue. You could use any kind of glue you want. Aleene's, but it needs to be a good glue. And I kind of like to go as close to that little edge as I can get, but you don't want to have it go right up to the edge because then the glue will seep in onto your plastic window. Then I'm going to put it in place. And you want there to be paper edge around it too. And now I'm going to go on top of it on this side for it to get glued to the other page. Now you're going to want to put Mod Podge all over your pages and stick them together and clamp them down and put something heavy on it and let it dry really, really well to get these 2 pages to stick together. Okay, so I'm going to put Mod Podge down. And along this edge and the top edge and in the gutter here. And then I'm going to put it on this side as well. And I'm going to glue those pages down together. And I'm going to use a gift card to just smush them together like when you do your sets. Just to get them as flat as you can get them. And then I like to take these little clamps and clamp those edges right up to the window. Okay, and then I'm going to completely let that dry. So I'm going to put something heavy on this and leave it to dry. So this is how it looks so far with my little window. And when I originally had planned to do this and I was going to do my frame this way, I didn't do much interesting thing right here. There's kind of just this blob of paint. And then once I changed it to this way, I'm really not a fan of that. So what I decided to do was to cut out these cute little leaves. This is from some metal die cut dies that were sent to me in Happy Mail by Mimi. So thank you, Mimi. I love them. And I'm going to glue those into place just to kind of cover them up. And then it also adds a little bit more texture. And then the next step would be to glue your frame into place on both sides. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is put your girls on the page. And you want to, before you glue them down, you want to put them in place and see how they look in the window, because you want them to really show in the window. So get them in the window, then flip the window this way and put this girl where she's going to be seen in the window. And then that's going to show you where to glue them down. So I'm going to finish that part and then come back and show you the finished project. So here's what it looks like with my girls in place and my frames on the windows with the gold around the frames, those leaves added. And here's the girl in the window. Look how cute, and the pattern behind her shows. I love that. And then when you flip the page to the next page, now this girl is in the window. So there it is. I love it. It turned out so good. It's just so pretty and fun to look at. So now what I'm going to do is the last thing is take a charcoal pencil and my little brush that I've cut off to make into like a little scrubber for charcoal. And I'm going to go in behind this girl and do some charcoal so that she doesn't disappear into this busy background so much. So when you put the charcoal down and you smear it out, then see how it'll make her stand out a little bit. So that's going to be my last thing. And then this page is done. Love it. Hope you enjoyed this project. And the next project is going to be really fun too. I've already got my ideas started and videos going. So get ready for the next project. And I hope you give this flip window page a try. So go make some art with your Julie Netting paper dolls, because art soothes the heart.